Hello, everyone. Joe Francis here. You are listening to the Joe Francis podcast, and today's guest is Gunjan Aggarwal. Gunjan brings her 14 years of experience in the education industry with Learn with Leaders. She's a chartered accountant by profession, and Gunjan holds an MBA degree from ISB in Hyderabad. She's passionate about her goal of bringing Ivy quality learning to every student across the globe. In her roles, Gunjan has provided operational excellence and exceptional design. For her focused dedication and efforts, Gunjan was named one of the 50 most talented social media professionals of India by the prestigious CMO Asia and Youth Marketing Forum. She was also awarded the World Women Leadership Award in 2017 by the World HRD Congress and Femina. Gunjan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Joe. That was a lovely introduction. Very unexpected.
Everyone loves hearing their introduction. When it's said by someone else, they think, wow, have I actually done all of
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly my reaction. Okay, wow.
no one ever likes saying it about themselves, but when someone else says it, it sounds good, doesn't it?
It just the 14 years sounded like, yeah, oh, wow. It just sounded really nice. Thanks, Joe, for
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for coming. So, yeah, this podcast, we've kind of just started it. You're, I think, the eighth or ninth guest, and we've done well with our batch at ISB, and really it's taken the form of seeing the ways that people have engineered their careers and found a trajectory towards their kind of true calling, if you like. Which in most cases has been to do something themselves. And therefore, I see that this is quite inspirational both for existing entrepreneurs as well as aspiring entrepreneurs as well. Or, in fact, just anyone who wants to, who may be at an early stage of their career or even midway through and wants to understand how people have navigated the various twists and turns towards finding their true calling. So, with that in mind, it's probably worth starting with what how your professional career developed and some of the key inflection points along the way that brought you to where you are now with Learn with Leaders.
Thanks, Joe. And I totally admire the work you're doing because I think bringing out these stories also inspire the next generation to
Absolutely.
understand that there is really no straight career path which they are told in school, which we were told in school. So when I was growing up, very traditional education, given, three choices, become a CA, doctor, lawyer, engineer actually was the fourth, and the fifth one was or be a failure. We really weren't even told that there is anything else that we could do. So I chose CA at that point of time. And, long story, worked with Arthur Anderson, Ernst& Young, completed all of that work X, went to ISB, went and did my iBanking. So literally an ace career with ace companies, with the top companies in the world. The day I got my first bonus at Citibank, I told myself, okay, this is just not for me. I had seen the bonus rut and how that gets. And I said, okay, I just can't sit behind a computer, do this for the rest of my life. My passion somewhere in my heart was always education. I still didn't know what because I had come from a very narrow view of life, right? Because working in a place like Arthur Anderson or, Ernst& Young, you just see tax or audit or investment banking, which is finance. The world of finance is very, very different. And I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah.
So I quit, literally quit without having anything in mind. And I said, I'm going to go start a company.
Well, this
So
was this was after the MBA, was it?
this was after the MBA. I worked for a year with Citibank in Bombay and I quit in 2006 actually. And I did some volunteering with ISB actually after that, just to clear my head in terms of what I want. I needed
Yeah.
some time off. And I did some volunteering work. I spent some time just exploring different parts of education. 2007 March is when I actually got down to saying I wanted to start a vocational training firm, which we started in. Finally, in May, we incorporated the company. It was called Upsir when we started. It was doing well. We had a very interesting roller coaster ride there. But 2008 financial crisis hit, and we were doing mostly financial services training for bottom of the pyramid. So that entire thing wiped out literally overnight. And so as entrepreneurs, you were just like all the savings went into salaries at that time. So we then said, okay, we need to get up and do something, and we started a
Was that
journalism.
fully bootstrapped then, that first company
We've
that
always been bootstrapped, Joe, till date.
okay.
Absolutely bootstrapped. It was bootstrapped. It was very good. We opened 6 centers, and but because the training was linked to a job, so the minute the job vanished, nobody wanted to do any training without a job in India.
Where,
You know,
how did you get your first clients really to drive that organic revenue that would fuel the business?
Joe, we actually went literally cold calling on insurance firms at that time because they were really struggling with manpower.
Okay.
HDFC was one of our first clients.
Oh wow! So you landed a big one straight away.
Yeah, so HDFC was like, yeah, very steady client for us throughout. So HDFC Bank as well as the insurance vertical. Insurance was very new, 2007 in terms of scaling up, right? So then we also used to, go to the newer insurance firms like DLF Promerica was one of our very first few clients. They've now, I think sold off part of their business. But it was very fun. But yeah, it was challenging. We had to fire our team after 6 months of surviving them, and we had to start something new. So by then we started a journalism school with Pramath, 909 Media. And we ran that for 3 years. It was an idea before its time. So we, parallelly were doing a lot of digital marketing for the school. And this is the time when Facebook had just started becoming big. So, I did everything myself. And however much I hated all the marketing classes at ISB, I suddenly fell in love with the real marketing, which was very different from what we were taught. I enjoyed it so much that I actually converted it to a side business while we were doing the journalism school, which was a digital marketing firm. That time, the generation was all print ads. And the lead generation, obviously, on Facebook and Google was very cheap. Not that everybody was advertising at that time. So the CACs were very good. So E Squared is the digital marketing firm I set up at that point of time with my business partner, Bijoy, who's also my husband now.
Right.
So we ran that. We've been
That
running
worked
that.
well in both contexts.
Exactly. But that was more, the business had to be done and we had to survive. We needed bread and butter to keep going.
Yeah.
And this thing about doing something in education was always so dear to my heart. So we just worked with universities at that point of time. So it keep giving me more insights of what's wrong with the school, where are the gaps in the education system. Uh, 2020, no, 2020 actually, yeah. 2020, I finally one day said that I've had enough and I really need to do something. That's when Learn with Leaders was started overnight. In fact, I still remember it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't know if you remember Professor Bhagwan Chaudhary
Yes.
uh, from ISB. I was on a call with him and I said, you know what, I want to. So he was hearing about this idea for a while from me, and I need to launch this. And I had a different name in mind to do it. And we had to send a proposal to a university the next day because we wanted to like do a curriculum tie up. He said, let's call it Learn with Leaders then. And at 2 a.m., I blocked the domain. I got my designer overnight to do a logo. And like by 11 a.m., I still remember we had sent out the proposal. So that's how Learn with Leaders was born overnight.
Right.
And I set out as a global business. Joe, at that point of time, the lockdown had hit. Everything had just come to a standstill and nobody knew what was going on. I wanted to bring in Harvard centers, Stanford centers, MIT centers to do interventions for high school kids and make the Ivy League education more accessible. Obviously, when I started, everybody started laughing. Okay, like somebody had to do this, they would have done it a long time ago. It's never going to happen. That's always a good thing for me because, at least I know a million people won't try doing this.
No, but
So, yeah.
just for clarity, the outset of this, then that you had decided that you wanted to do something in education, and you knew you were gearing that towards the schools. Are we talking about the 11 to 18 segment?
So we mostly teenagers, yes. So we start from like 12 years old to 16 years old, and we're going younger this year, but right now grade 8 to grade 12th, because that is where you can start making an impact before they hit, that college life where it's too late to bring in certain changes. And surprisingly, Joe, schools were very open-minded. They wanted to bring in this new thinking. They wanted to get in, critical thinking, design thinking, leadership skills,
Oh,
debating
I
skills,
see. Okay.
communication skills, money is big. And, it was one of those white spaces. Nobody realized that there was so much demand sitting there. So there are two kinds of kids, right? One kid who knows I have to go to an Ivy League, right? Like I will apply, I will spend, 5 years building a profile to go to an Ivy League. There's the other kid who knows I'll never make it to an Ivy League. Uh, but that child has a dream of at least understanding what it feels to have Harvard like education, right? And imagine that's really the whole world, and once you give that to them, the joy on their faces and what they learn and network is unbelievable, because I did not go to study abroad. I wanted to be with my parents. My mom's health wasn't good, so I took a decision that I will not go abroad. So I felt like, what if they could network at an early age and find their calling, find a way out to do what they really want to do? Because, in this, how the world is changing, what they will really need to do is build their own networks to find uh, a place that respects them for who they are rather than their grades. Schools really have a straight jacketed way of figuring out a child, but that's not what the real world is ever going to look at.
No, absolutely. And so from the outset, then, had you considered that your programs would dovetail into the existing curriculum, but
Exactly.
offer a kind of different way at approaching these kind of vocational skills, like communication skills, presentation skills, uh, observing financial, building financial acumen, and so on? Is that how you kind of envisaged this?
So the way I envisage this is schools are going to be our partners, right? We didn't want to go B2C, so we are a B2B2C company completely. So where a school would either do an adjacent system where they would do our programs on the weekend for their students, or there are certain schools like in the US where they have included it into the curriculum. So every 3 months they would run a program by us.
Well, so you're content creators in that sense.
No, all my content is created by Harvard centers. So these are student centers at Harvard. The organizations we work with them we develop the curriculum. They only deliver the program. So 99% of my programs are all delivered by Harvard undergraduate students.
Okay, so just so that I'm getting this right in my head, the delivery mechanism is via schools. Obviously, the end users are the students, but the value proposition is that the students are receiving instruction from the top universities in the world, the latest thinking on various subjects.
Exactly. And also the fact that all our curriculum is always taught by Harvard undergraduates. So there is never, there's never a doubt on what will happen if you scale up, because the curriculum and teaching is my prime responsibility. I want to make sure that the experience of a child is great and they are able to network globally. So, sorry. That's really why we became viral and why schools started reaching out to us. Today, I get kids from 80 countries in just about 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So, in terms of, I mean, you began this only 2 years ago, and already you've established this kind of quite enormous traction. Um, the the delivery of these programs then is happening not just in India but all over the place.
Oh, we actually have started doing India last 3 months. We
Oh, I see.
started.
So you actually began with countries outside India.
As I said, I just felt I was global. I did not look at boundaries because that COVID time, everything was shut down. There were literally no boundaries.
Yeah,
Zoom
true.
became acceptable as a means to learn, which couldn't have come at a better time for us. Because 10 years people have been saying, accept online learning. But overnight schools had to shift online, right? So everybody accepted Zoom as a mode to learn. And in fact, recently we've also started doing in-person programs where we essentially fly down mentors to the schools. I've just finished running 22 programs in Indonesia, Dubai, and India.
This is yeah, that's brilliant. So are the programs online and live, or are they recorded?
We do not do even one single asynchronous thing in what we do. They're all Zoom live classes. In fact, the live, also the in-person programs we are doing. So think of a Harvard summer camp. It's pretty much forbidden, at $10,000 to $15,000 cost a child has to incur. So we flipped the model and said, we'll get the Harvard mentors to your school so that the kids could do it at like $300 or $500. It's been tremendous as a response we've got. So the now we're running the online live Zoom classes as well as in-person programs in schools, and we're like literally traveling mentors across the globe.
What? So the students on these programs, are they able to actually interact with the faculty then?
So as I said, it's a small class. Like
Yeah,
our student mentor ratio is 1:15 maximum.
got it. And they
Sometimes it's 1 is to
case
20,
studies and so
depends
on.
on the program. Competitions. So we do something which I call entertainment, which is a blended competition while they learn, where the student mentor ratio is higher because it's a competition. So there is a learning bit together. It's fantastic. So our lowest programs go down to like $60 and they go up to like $1,000. But there is something for everybody to do.
Right, right. So,
Like
what was involved in helping establish this from the beginning? You came from a finance background. You then did a bit of M&A. You then did a bit of volunteering, and then, at least at first blush, it looks as though you're entering a completely different field. How did you establish credibility in that space?
Joe, honestly, I just had a very, very strong desire to do it. And I'm a strong fan of cold calling. And we literally cold call to get all the partnerships, and nobody believes me on that. But the credibility was built because of the partners we got early on. And the way we scaled up our business, the feedback was always like 9 on 10, 10 on 10. Uh, Kids had never experienced that kind of teaching before.
So there wasn't I mean, there wasn't really any resistance from the actual content providers, which was these Ivy League universities, because I suppose they're spreading the message and making their content more accessible. Was there any, or even less resistance from the schools in taking these programs because it would broaden their educational offerings?
Joe, in fact, schools have loved the idea of bringing this because it's actually a very tough problem to crack, right? And from these centers' perspectives, these centers are set up to help teenagers, and which is something which nobody knew that this existed because before COVID, they were only doing either in campus or Boston programs.
Okay,
But when everything shut down for 2 years, then when they went on Zoom, there was no reason to stick to Boston in that case. They could teach anywhere, to any
yeah.
student anywhere in the world, which just suddenly opened up a huge opportunity for everyone. And I guess we were just there at the right time, at the right place.
So in a sense, the pandemic, which, as you say, it kind of forced everyone online and changed how people. Well, it changed a lot of things, didn't it? It changed how people even did their own work when the offices were closed and everything. But my sons, for a while, they did homeschooling as well, and there are some significant benefits to that. Have you found that the feedback has been, very, very strong in this case as well, even since the restrictions have ended?
Yeah, Joe. In fact, a lot of edtech companies, and we are a global education initiative. Uh, a lot of edtech companies that started in the pandemic literally went down 90% because once the schools opened up, travel opened up, nobody really wanted to sit on Zoom. But we've just been growing at a very fast pace even after everything opened up because what I deliver today, a child cannot get offline. They cannot get this course like my future doctors program, future lawyers program, my research program. There is the next best thing they will get is going to be at $8,000.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Joe, you have to provide value, right? If there is value and the commitment, there will always be somebody willing to take that. And unless you're creating value, you will just never have an audience. And as my business partner always says, if you have to sell something, then just don't do it,
Yeah.
because unless your product is solid, the market's brutal right now. Nobody wants to entertain. And I have two small children, and I can tell you, when I build learner leaders, my first lens is, would I like my kid to do this? Would I have enjoyed doing this? So my curation is top notch. I just don't do anything that I don't believe in.
Mm. Yeah,
uh,
exactly. And you've almost got you can like test out your ideas with your own children as well.
Exactly. And they've actually been a big part of a lot of things. I take feedback from them constantly, and they're very involved and very engaged in what I do.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, my daughter has been behind this a lot. Like, I saw the education system hampering her confidence, and she's a very confident child. And I felt like, unless I am there in this education system to change, I will just not be able to see the ideal education I want my kids to grow up in. Like right now with Chat GPT, everybody is trying to turn away from, in schools, what will happen on homework? How will they deal with plagiarism? I'm sure you've been following that video on LinkedIn, which is more about what are engineering schools gonna do. All the mugging of the 4 years is gone. People are not ready to listen to it today. But I always tell my kids that, look, technology is your friend, and you have to learn to use it. So they are as much of a big fan of ChatGPT as I am, and they're already using it. So I just feel like everything we do today at Learnway Leaders is always a step ahead, in terms of what a child would need to learn in terms of teamwork. I put kids in teams from different countries. They struggle on time zones.
Yeah.
And it sounds strange to you, to convert an ET time to UK time to Indonesia time is not something anybody can usually do. But when they have to fix a meeting, it's a nightmare. And I love it because they suddenly realize, oh my God, cross cultural team, cross age group programs. School asked us, oh, only ninth graders will do this program. I said, I'm sorry, but that is not going to make the program effective, because you pick up any workplace, you pick up your own school. Do you have everybody of the same age working in a class? Absolutely not. So why do you expect your kids to solve a problem working with the same age group?
Mm.
And that's a point I've driven down most schools, and they love it now, because this is one of the rarest places where across age groups kids work together.
What does it mean in terms of languages, though, between different countries? How is that element managed, or is
So, Joe, that's a great question, and it's been coming up again now. Right now, we only deliver in English, so that's why we have an interview process as well. So we are not an add to cart company. People apply, we interview, then we select a kid. Spanish is probably the next one that we'll do, because Latin America is a very, very big market for us. We totally love the schools that we work with there. They're like really amazing. So I think Spanish is going to be next, but it's gonna take time, because just making sure that delivery is top notch. It'll probably be the next 2 years. But going into different languages is going to be the next big thing for us, in the next 2 years.
so? From an organizational point of view, Learn with Leaders, you're only effectively 2 years old, already got significant traction with the providers as well as customers as such, and the kids love it as well. Um, what does the organizational structure look like to help delivering your initial vision?
In terms of how the organization is structured right now,
Yeah, yeah,
so Joe, we are a bootstrap startup. Founders do everything.
yeah.
We get involved in everything. I have like the most amazing team built up, and so essentially, as I said, we don't market. We have zero marketing costs, so we literally don't market at all. But I have a very strong school outreach team that reaches out to schools across the world, because my challenge is that I'm reaching out to multiple countries at the same time. However, my strong countries now, UAE, US, Indonesia, and India, where I have a much larger team. I spread out the team thinner onto UK, Europe, and other countries, because we do like to have a global representation in the programs. So there is an entire school outreach team, and then there's a program management team, then there's a social media team. So I have a really nice team structure now built up. But as founders, we don't have like a marketing head or a sales head right now. We'll end up, doing all of those functions, getting the team to do.
So, I mean, what, you're not doing any direct, like Google ads and all that kind of stuff?
Not a penny.
Ah, wow. So, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you actually get the message out there then? How do people find out about you?
Word of mouth, Joe. Like Pramod said this to me once. This was really the early days of Young India Fellowship, and I remember, much before Ashoka came in, we were all sitting. We were a very small team of the YF team, and he said that for a good education institution delivering a good product, their biggest marketeers are their students.
Yeah,
So
that's a
you
good
get
point.
your students, you deliver a good product, and there is no way they will not talk about it. So somehow for learn with leaders, that's marketing. I just don't need marketing, right? Because my students are really uh, I mean, there's a kid who came to one of my programs, Kirti Pia. She was part of the Take World Forward Fellowship. She developed a cereal for malnutrition kids
Yeah,
that is right now being funded by Pepsi. She got covered by Forbes for
right.
her project that she did with us. Now, I have like in numerous such projects that have come out of everything that we do because every program the kid has to do a certain project. Most of our programs, either they're writing a paper, they're doing a project, or they're presenting something. That is really my strength. My students are my strength. My product is my strength. So if we have to market, we just go to schools and say, hey, we're gonna make a difference, and they come on calls. I'm literally booked on calls from morning to evening with schools, and this is schools booking calls with us on a daily basis. I mean,
It
I just
sounds it
had a
sounds like the ideal business to be in. All of the customers, it's like
in
inbound
fact,
leads all the time.
today my
This is
team was
amazing.
Today my team was so flabbergasted. We had a school from Nigeria
Hmm.
that sent us this school was just applying nonstop. We had 110 applications in like 3 hours for a particular program. So I reached out to the school and said, "Hey, just come on a call. What's going on here?" And he was literally like, the school was they had like this teen, like the steel sheets. It was
Yes,
not even like
on
a
the roof,
proper.
corrugated steel. Yeah,
Yeah. And he's like such an amazing, fun guy. And I was like, I'm very impressed. He said, yeah, please accept all of them. And I said, okay, they're going through an interview. I just wanted to let you know. There's a school in Nigeria that I didn't even know existed. So every day there are surprises and there is fun element to what we do. You're right. It's just not my dream business, but it's my passion. I love making a difference to teenagers, and I want to go younger as well. I think communication is where the younger kids really need help, just to not speak better, but also to speak up for themselves. Because as they grow, the peer pressure gets too much onto them. And that's one thing that we incorporate in all our programs. The ability to network and talk and understand that it is you who has to decide what you want to do. Just because your peers, parents, counselors tell you something, just don't have to go follow that path. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Your creativity is important, your collaboration with other people is important. What you want to do, what makes you happy is important. So those are things. And we're a no grades platform, so all our application forms have zero academic information on anyone. So they feel very liberated when they come to us. They open up. In fact, their parents who write to us and say, what do you do? Why does my child want to miss a holiday to attend your program? I said, yeah, it's just fun.
yeah.
So
What? So
and
at the end of this, you don't have like a certification process or something like that,
So the organizations that we work with, they give a certificate to the students. So all
right?
programs are different. I have a portfolio of 40 programs right now that I deliver.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the organizations give a certificate to the students. And yeah, that's a big pull as well for the student because right now they have to build their profile. So that's kind of important for them. So yeah, that's built into every program, Joe. That's something every child, especially in India, asks for.
mm. And I mean the basic takeaway for a student is that they are exposed to a set of skills that will be kind of transportable regardless of the career they take. However, you also have some geared towards specific careers as well. Is that right?
Absolutely right. So there are certain skill-based programs, there are certain career-based programs, and they can do this irrespective. So some kids who come for a doctor's program, for example, are still figuring out if they want to become a doctor. So this is not like a test prep program. This is just them being in the shoes of a doctor for 12 hours
Yeah.
and figuring out if they've liked what that felt like. And when parents come to me in ninth grade and say, oh, what should I do? I said, let the child be, and let him understand where did he get his flow. Like, the child has to find his flow and what he likes and what he dislikes. At least that distinction from grade 9th 10th is extremely important before they land up making a wrong career choice and dropping out of university to do something else. So that's why we have those. And at the end of the day, as I said, they really love networking globally, which was something not available to kids at this age,
Mm.
ever before, and in such a tight environment where every child is interviewed. So it's that way very safe networking place for all the kids.
So, do the kids apply independently or via their schools?
Both. So kids, sometimes the school send them the link directly. Sometimes the school sends, like this particular school, even though kids applied independently, he knows who applied. But typically, when bulk applications have to come in, the school takes them and sends us the application list.
So,
Then we
the your customer, Learn with Leaders customer, is the school, or it's the student, or it's a combination.
It's a combination. For me, the customer is the school, student, and the parent.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the school
I mean,
will, send an email, put it on the portal, but ultimately the child has to like to do it. The parent has to believe in what we do.
mm.
Uh, but yeah, so I guess all three would be my biggest customers.
And do you think that the acceptance of these models of learning and also the actual material itself is indicative of some kind of changes in how people perceive what is actually required of a basic education? Um, do you,
Joe,
for
Joe,
instance, in our time, it was very skills based
yeah.
learning. You would learn this, and this, kind of fact based learning rather. Do you think that there is a kind of move towards more transportable skills that can be utilized outside of very siloed areas?
Joe, I'll be very honest. Right now, nobody knows what to do with the education system. But everybody wants to change it. Everybody knows it's redundant, right? Today, 80% of what we are teaching is literally a waste of child's time. And everybody knows and accepts it, but why nobody can do anything about it? It's very, very regulated. It's driven by government. The curriculums have to change at a very country level. If you look at curriculums that IB brings in, at least that is more forward looking than our traditional CBSE curriculums. And, I mean, I can go on hours about it, but that is why the acceptance that, look, I can't change this right now, but can I incorporate something that can help make it better? That acceptance is very high right now because everybody understands the system needs to change. And like, I have very dear friends as school principals now in many countries. And Helen, who's a principal in Canada, she's launching some absolutely mind-blowing things at a school, and I keep telling her we should bring this to other schools. So the other thing that I'm going to try and do this year is actually collaboration among schools, because if one school has cracked something great, they should just collaborate and give it to the other school, so that everybody is not trying to reinvent the wheel. And if we do that continuously for 2 to 3 years, we will evolve a new system within the system.
Yeah, that's quite interesting actually, because for many, for instance, privately based schools, you would imagine that such competitive advantages they might try to preserve rather than share.
They're very open to sharing, because at the end of the day, devil's in the execution, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's always the execution. But schools right now, Joe, are hungry to learn from others of what they can do within the strict guidelines that they have.
Hmm.
And any solutions that come to them, they are open to looking at it. Like, we are a easy solution, right? They just have to plug us in, and that is also verified. They know the curriculum is great, teaching is great. So what I'm saying is that there is not a yes or a no answer for anybody today what the education system is going to evolve. But my network amongst these 80 countries tells me that everybody is ready, waiting for one signal from the government to say, hey, let's make an effort to change it, because a lot of this is redundant. Our kids would really need to have, you know 10 hours of creativity class rather than a Hindi class, but it'll take some time, because
Mm,
to change this drastically is not going to happen. So schools are also trying their best to bring in what they can at this point, but everybody knows it has to change.
fascinating. Well, Gunjan, I mean, in examining your sort of career uh, before ISB and then kind of after ISB, where you moved into some of these entrepreneurial things, what would you say are the important elements that someone needs to consider in moving away from a monthly paycheck and that kind of stability that they're normally used to taking the plunge and going on their own?
Joe, I would say the three very important things, right? One is really the belief that you will make it anyways. One may not work, two may not work, and I've had a set of failures. But really that belief that you want to be an entrepreneur, and it's a conscious decision. Like, I just knew it. I cannot work for anyone. I just knew it. It's never gonna work. And I told myself it's not gonna work, so I have to become an entrepreneur, and that's what I'm gonna do. So that's my belief, and I know that that's it for me. It's the problem is if you're in the middle,
Mm,
uh this or that, then it never works. Then you're always, having that comfort zone is always nice.
yeah.
And monthly paycheck, even you're hating getting up to do your work every morning, that routine. um, I can't do it. I just cannot get up in the morning and do something I don't like to do. I get up, I work 24/7 for Learnway Leaders right now, literally 24/7 with two small kids. And people ask me, how do you do it? I just do it because I'm so passionate about the change I'm bringing,
Mm,
that there is, the Sundays, sometime in my team, like, I just hate telling them to do something. I feel like so bored on a Sunday. Sometimes I have 2 hours extra. Like, what do I do? Because my mind's always racing. The second thing is to have the passion of having really a higher level objective. What I mean by that is something that I've only discovered after these 14, 15 years, that we don't really define a higher purpose for ourselves. It takes sometimes, people define a higher purpose at 60, 70 years old. But if we start thinking about a higher purpose, why am I here? What do I want to do? What is going to make my soul feel happy? At the end of the day, if you align your entrepreneurial journey to that, you will never look back. It is only when you look at competition and say, hey, he's making so much money, I should do this. This whole thing about copying someone mindset will not last, because unless you come from a thought of creativity that you can create, and there is so much in this world to create, and align it with your higher purpose, that's something that will always last for you.
What about societal expectations? Because particularly, for instance, you mentioned when you were young, you were kind of given or you were strongly guided towards, what we would class as the professions, those areas. And that's very common, particularly amongst Indian parents to go into, accounting, engineering, legal, or medicine. Um, when you decide to, if you're already in one of those positions and then decide to step off, do you face any kind of pressure socially from
So,
family?
Joe, that's the third point of being an entrepreneur. Never think of external validation. If you look at external validation, you're screwed. Like, I left an iBanking job. Like, I would have made so much money in that 5 years. Forget 15. Uh, but you don't have to care about what others think, right? Because at the end of the day, if you love yourself and you love what you do, people will be forced to love what you do. There is no way in hell that anybody can come and tell you, look, this is not good enough, unless you let them.
Which brings me actually to another point you just mentioned there. Many people are very interested in investment banking, and I'm sure that the ability to make stacks of cash is one of the areas of interest in that industry. What role would you say, the commercials, that your income should drive your purpose, or did you kind of allude to it by saying you should have a higher purpose than personal gain?
Joe, you should love money. And I have learned this just 2.5 years ago. I was brought up saying, "Oh, money is not good. It spoils the children. It does this, it does that." It's wrong because in school, in fact, one of my child's classes, one day a child said, on my birthday, my grandfather gave me X amount of money, and teacher said, "Oh, we don't talk about money in school." And I actually wanted to intervene and say, "Why don't you talk about money in school?" The minute the child's going to step out of school, the parents are going to say, "Go to college now, earn money." And whereas for 22 years you've told a child, don't worry about money, and then in 1 year you expect the child to rewire their brain to earn money. So
Yeah.
finance is something very important. I run a beautiful challenge called the Bulls of the Wall Street for teenagers, where they actually invest in stock markets on a simulation. It's something I was very passionate about. I teach them about compounding, which I learned very late in life, thanks to our batchmate, Dev. And So money is extremely important, Joe. But aligning it with a purpose makes it very beautiful,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, today I am able to give 100% scholarships because I am also able to charge a child who's willing to pay. I can give 100% scholarship to a child who comes from a very low income background. Uh, and people said, "Oh, why don't you do this as a not for profit?" I said, "I don't want to run a not for profit. Why should I run a not for profit when I want to fulfill everything I want to do through this business? I want to help every child that I can. But I don't have to like have a sham around it and I'm a not for profit, right? I am a socially good enterprise that wants to make a difference in the world, and at the end of the day, if the team is not making money, forget me. I firmly believe that everybody who joins me on this journey should make money, because that's the only way they will feel they're growing with us. Otherwise, at the end of the day, everybody needs money to survive for anything, like, from whatever you need in life. So I would say it's a very important thing, and you should be proud of the fact that you make money. And
Yeah.
it's strange. My daughter asked me this question today morning. She was hearing some conversation. She said, "Oh, you're paying this person, you're paying that person. Why are you paying so much to them?" And she's just 8 years old. And then I explained her why I do it. And then I told her, I said, "Don't worry. Your mama wouldn't do anything unless she knows her finances well." So don't be concerned.
No, it's a valid point, and I think it's a kind of validation of the fact that obviously money only flows into the business if it's delivering value externally. So yeah, I think that's
And
a very,
I
a very good point.
keep telling kids also, they come and say, "Oh, I'll make a NGO. I want to make a social enterprise." This is school level. We run an entrepreneurship program. And my favorite question in that program is always, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it? Half of them come and say, "I'll donate half of it." And I said, "How is that going to help anyone? Like, what if you actually invested in it and, you use the interest to do some good?" But they're just hardwired to think like that. So I think talking about finances with kids at an early age is very important. And As parents, I have taken that responsibility that I teach my kids what is good money and what is bad money, and they now understand that
Mm.
difference. So as long as they understand that difference, and how good you can do with money, how you can help someone, they need to really have those basics clear before they make judgments about finances and money and how they spend and how they earn and how they save. So I think that's a very important lesson to teach.
Brilliant. So just back again, finally, to learn with leaders. What is next in the ongoing timeline of learn with leaders? What can we expect next from you?
Always surprises. But this year,
Hopefully, not surprises to you.
well, I get surprises too. Like this Nigeria school today was a
Hmm.
surprise. But I like being surprised. And This year, I'm targeting about 100 programs in different countries in person. So, which means traveling about 100 mentors as well across the globe. But at the same time, really, really grow the blend between the delivery online on Zoom and in person, and then grow into Spanish programs, which, we have a very big demand coming in, but I just have to find the right way to scale up. But there'll always be something new at Learn with Leaders. That's what I keep telling the schools.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we see you quite a bit on LinkedIn. Is that the best way to find out more about what you're doing?
Yes, and even if I am delayed in putting something, my team is pretty good in putting Learn with Leaders page is pretty updated with our programs or anything nice we've done. So LinkedIn is my favorite place to put in whenever I have a student achievement or anything. I love to share that there. And LinkedIn has been a great platform as well for Learn with Leaders. I think connecting with school leaders, with industry, corporates, even organizations, it's been tremendous in our growth journey. So I just absolutely love using LinkedIn and what it can do. In fact, I have teenagers who I've trained to come on LinkedIn from zero contacts to 3,000 contacts. So that's another thing I do. Just the bright sparks, I take them and I put them on LinkedIn and I say, no, you got to do this.
Yeah, new age networking.
Yes, the new age networking. It's
Brilliant.
fun.
Well, it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation, Gunjan, and it's brilliant to hear about the success of Learn with Leaders and the model that you've been using, which is delivering all this value to students globally. So, thank you very, very much for coming on the podcast, and best wishes, sorry, for the future.
Thank you so much, Joe. This has been such a lovely conversation, and I really admire what you do. I'm a big fan of all your work. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And it's always a pleasure talking about the Learn with Leaders journey. It's just magical the way things have happened for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. And just for all of you, the viewers out there, I'd just like to thank you for all of the subs, likes, and comments. And I'd urge you to keep doing that. It will help the channel grow, and we'll continue to get fascinating stories like Gunjan's today. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Gunjan, once again.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks again.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.